You've probably wondered why some adults feel fundamentally broken despite having what looks like a good life. Maybe you're scrolling through social media, watching friends celebrate their achievements, while you sit there feeling empty inside. Or perhaps you're the one with the successful career, the nice apartment, the social circle that envies your life. Yet you wake up every morning with this gnawing sense that something is wrong with you. Here's the thing. What if that feeling isn't about what happened to you, but about what never happened at all? This is how emotional emptiness is created. When we think about childhood trauma, our minds often jump to dramatic events, physical abuse, entrapment, tense divorces. But there's another kind of wound that's harder to see, harder to name, and often harder to heal. It's the wound of emotional neglect, of being a child who was ignored. Dr. Jonis Webb, a clinical psychologist who has spent decades studying this phenomenon, describes emotional neglect as what didn't happen rather than what did happen in childhood. It's the absence of emotional nurturance, the silence where validation should have been, the blank stare where understanding should have lived. You didn't get hurt by what your parents did. You got hurt by what they failed to do. And that absence carved out a space inside you that still aches today. This video will help you understand how emotional neglect in your childhood shaped the adult you became, why you might struggle with feelings you can't name, and how your brain adapted to survive in an environment that couldn't see your emotional needs. By the end, you'll have language for experiences you thought were just personal failings, and one practice to start healing the part of you that learned to need nothing from anyone. But first, we need to understand what happens in the developing mind when emotional needs go unmet. Now, let's examine the invisible architecture of childhood emotional neglect. Webb found that emotional neglect operates like a ghost in the machine of human development. It's not the presence of harm, but the absence of emotional responsiveness that creates lasting damage. Picture a child running to their parent after skinning their knee. The parent looks up from their phone, says, "You're fine," and goes back to scrolling. The child learns that their pain doesn't matter, that their emotions are inconvenient, that they should handle everything alone. Now multiply that moment by thousands of similar interactions over 18 years. What makes this so destructive isn't cruelty, it's indifference. When a child's feelings are dismissed or pathologized, she learns feelings are burdensome and later feels guilty for having them at all. The research shows that many emotionally neglected adults look fine on the surface, yet feel empty, different, or undeserving inside. You become someone who apologizes for crying. You become someone who feels guilty for needing comfort. You become someone who believes that wanting emotional support makes you weak. The choice you had to make wasn't moral, it was survival. Your developing brain learned that emotions were dangerous because they brought disconnection instead of care. Webb describes this as the fatal flaw, a deep sense of being fundamentally different or flawed. You carry this invisible wound into every relationship, every job interview, every moment when you need to trust that you matter to someone else. The sad truth is that it will always be there, no matter where you go or how much money you have, because the wound is deep and can only be healed from within. Think of childhood as the foundation and adulthood as the house, Webb writes. When that foundation lacks emotional support, the entire structure feels unstable, even when it looks solid from the outside. But understanding the wound is only the beginning. We need to explore how your brain actually changed to protect you. Next, we'll examine how neglect reshapes the developing mind. Dr. Bruce Perry's fascinating research on childhood neglect reveals that the human brain becomes, as he writes, a reflection of the world in which it develops. If that world lacks consistent emotional responsiveness, the brain adapts accordingly. The brain mediates everything: movement, sensation, cognition, emotion, and behavior. Its complex systems are shaped early through a process called use-dependent development. Neural pathways that get repeated strengthen and become highways in your mind. Pathways that don't get used wither away. During the first 3 years of life, your brain reaches 90% of its adult size. This makes early childhood a period of extraordinary vulnerability and opportunity. Perry's research distinguishes between 2 types of neglect: global neglect, which involves sensory deprivation across multiple domains, and chaotic neglect, the more common pattern of inconsistent caregiving. When children adapt to chaotic, threatening environments, they bring survival states that are ill-matched to normal life. Repeated activation of stress systems shifts your baseline so that even neutral situations feel alarming. You learn to overread non-verbal cues, scanning every face for signs of danger or rejection. Your nervous system developed in an environment where emotional needs were met with absence or irritation. So you learned to be hypervigilant about other people's moods while remaining disconnected from your own feelings. You learned that safety meant needing nothing from anyone. People have only brought me pain. I'll do it alone, you might say to yourself. This isn't a character flaw. This was a brilliant adaptation. Your brain did exactly what it needed to do to help you survive in an emotionally toxic landscape. The problem is that it no longer serves you. Perry notes that internal working models of how the physical world may be expected to behave form during these critical early years. If your world taught you that emotional expression leads to disconnection, your adult brain still carries that expectation into every relationship. You weren't broken then, and you're not broken now. But your neural pathways carved deep grooves around self-reliance and emotional numbness, because that's what kept you safe. The tragedy is that these same protective mechanisms now prevent you from experiencing the connection you've always craved. But before we explore solutions, we need to understand one more crucial piece: how attachment shapes your capacity for relationships throughout life. John Bowlby bolstered the field of childhood psychology by showing us that attachment runs, as he states, from the cradle to the grave. The quality of your earliest relationships creates a template for how you expect all future relationships to unfold. Bowlby discovered that across species, especially primates, young maintain proximity to specific caregivers and work to restore that connection when it's disrupted. In humans, this system is designed to activate when we feel fear, separation, or threat. Your caregiver was supposed to be your secure base, the safe harbor you could return to for comfort and reassurance. But what happens when that secure base is emotionally unavailable? When your cries for comfort are met with annoyance or indifference? Your attachment system learns that seeking comfort is dangerous. The research shows that by 3 months, infants differentially respond to their primary caregiver. By 9 months, they show vigorous greeting behaviors when reunited after separation. This isn't just recognition. It's the foundation of your capacity to trust that other people can be sources of safety and comfort. When this system develops in an environment of emotional neglect, you learn what researchers call counter-dependence, a drive to need no one as protection against vulnerability. You become someone who gives help but struggles to receive it. You become someone who offers practical solutions but feels uncomfortable when others share their pain and are vulnerable. Webb notes that emotionally neglected people tend to be good listeners, but they are not good at talking, especially about themselves. You learned to tune into other people's needs while becoming deaf to your own. Your attachment system is still there, waiting. It doesn't disappear in adulthood. It just learns to whisper instead of cry. In moments of illness, loss, or sudden danger, you'll feel that old longing for comfort resurface. But by then, you've spent decades building walls around your heart. The beautiful truth is that these internal working models can change. Your brain retains plasticity throughout your life, as neuroscience has shown us, which means the pathways carved by neglect can be rewired through new experiences of consistent, attuned care. You didn't have secure attachment then, but you can still create earned security now. But first, you need practical tools to begin this healing journey. So, how does this ancient understanding of attachment and childhood neglect apply to your life today? The path forward starts with one simple but courageous act: learning to notice and name your emotions without judgment. Here's a practice you can start today. Daily emotion check-in practice. Step 1. Set 3 gentle reminders on your phone throughout the day. When they go off, pause whatever you're doing and place one hand on your chest. Step 2. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Don't try to fix or change anything. Just notice. If you can't identify the emotion, start with basic categories: mad, sad, glad, afraid, or surprised. Step 3. Say to yourself, it makes sense that I'm feeling this. Your emotions aren't problems to solve. They're information about your inner world that deserves acknowledgement. Start with just this. Don't worry about expressing emotions to others or making big changes. Simply practice the radical act of witnessing and feeling your own emotional experience with curiosity instead of criticism. Further work with a licensed therapist or other professional is always a consideration as well. Remember, you didn't get to practice emotional awareness as a child. You were surviving as best you could. But now you get to learn what your parents couldn't teach you. Now you get to be your own parent. This isn't about blame. This is about reclamation. You're not learning to be more emotional. You're learning to be more human. The research is clear. Emotional neglect in childhood creates specific, predictable patterns in adulthood. But understanding these patterns is the first step toward freedom. You're not too sensitive for having needs. You're not weak for wanting connection. You're not broken for struggling with emotions that other people seem to handle effortlessly. You're someone who learned to survive in an emotionally dysfunctional environment, and that survival strategy served you well when you were small and powerless. But survival mode isn't meant to be a permanent residence. You didn't have emotional attunement and support then, but you still have the capacity to create it now. The child in you who learned that emotions were dangerous is still there, still protecting you the only way they knew how. That child deserves your compassion, not your criticism. They kept you alive when no one else was paying attention to your inner world. So reach out to them. They're waiting for you. Thank you for joining me on this exploration into the psychology of emotional neglect in children. If this resonated, Please share your reflections in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the depths of practical psychology, philosophy, and personal development. Until next time.